Hello and a very warm welcome to Front Page only on the AIM Network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. Truly a pleasure to have you all with us. But before we get on with the headlines and what follows after the headlines, here is something which is extremely exciting for me to share with you, which is the fact that Cipher, India's biggest AI summit and expo, is back in all of its glory in its 10th edition, which makes it bigger than ever. It shall take place in October of this year. The venue is KTPO, Bengaluru, where else? And the fact that you are very serious about your AI and tech, yes, I can see it in your eyes right now, then well, pretty much you will be at Cipher 2026 and we will be there to welcome you. And now, of course, here are the headlines. Bengaluru startup LionCircuits is building a massive 100-acre AI-powered PCB mega campus in Karnataka, launching India's largest manufacturing push to completely crush the nation's 70% electronics import dependency on foreign markets today. Asian tech markets faced a brutal panic today as South Korea's Kospi crashes 8%. Triggering emergency trading halts driven by skyrocketing AI infrastructure costs, Apple's price hikes, and OpenAI's newly delayed $1 trillion public listing. India has joined the US-led Pax Silica alliance, a coalition of 35 countries focused on securing AI supply chains through cooperation on critical minerals, semiconductors, energy, and AI infrastructure. Adani has launched Vande Bharatam, a nationwide initiative to identify innovators across all states and union territories. It aims to expand India's startup ecosystem beyond metro cities through mentorship, incubation, investors, and funding support. Senior tech journalist Supreet Hundinia will join me on an exclusive, interesting conversation, which will be to showcase the expose while Apple's new Siri AI lags behind Google Gemini and outline the massive architectural bottlenecks that may or may not prevent it from redefining the smartphone experience. This week, in Vijaypura district, North Karnataka, a plot of land at KIADB, Bulawad, became one of the most significant addresses in Indian electronics manufacturing. LionCircuits, a Bengaluru-based PCB startup founded in 2016, announced a 100-acre integrated PCB mega campus right here with multiple fab units, PCBA lines, a fully automated components warehouse, and an research and development center covering semiconductors and advanced applied engineering. CEO Murli Srinivasa put it as this: he is dedicating the next 10 years of his life to building this campus and changing the way electronics gets manufactured in India. The Electronics Component Manufacturing Scheme, the ECMS, is specifically designed to close this gap. 22,900 crore rupees is committed to subsidizing deep component manufacturing that India has, well, never developed at the required volume. 75 component factories currently are under construction. The target is 250 in 3 years. The PLI scheme, if we all remember, created 2.5 million jobs in electronics. The ECMS goes deeper into subcontinents, raw materials, and the supply chain that runs beneath the finished product. PCBs are exactly the category this scheme exists to develop. Now, to understand why that question matters and why Vijaypura specifically is where the story is starting, you need to know what a PCB actually is, why making one at the level India needs is harder than it looks, and what India is doing about it on 3 separate fronts simultaneously. And also, simultaneously, please like, share, and subscribe. If, well, inspiration stories like these break ground with you, well, it always helps us at Front Page to keep chipping away. And now, of course, I would like to thank you for your support. Now, Chip fabrication. Now, what TSMC does in Taiwan and Arizona involves etching transistors onto silicon wafers at nanometer precision. Then we come to OSAT. Outsourced semiconductor assembly and test is what Tata Electronics is doing at Jagi Road with power chip packaging finished chips for deployment. PCB manufacturing, finally, is the board those chips mount onto, the physical foundation connecting every component in every device. Three completely different industries, mind you, with three completely different capital requirements, process capabilities, and expertise bases. India is attempting all three simultaneously under the India Semiconductor Mission's 76,000 crore commitment. Of the three, PCB manufacturing is the most achievable near-term win and the one with the widest gap between current capability and what the market actually needs. NVIDIA's GPUs going into India's data centers require advanced PCBs. Yotta's supercluster needs them. Tata Motors puts them in EVs. The semiconductor fabs, the defense platforms, the AI servers India is building, all of them depend on a domestic PCB supply chain that currently does not exist at the required volume. Now, importing 70% of our PCBs from the country we are trying to reduce dependency on exposes every technology ambition India has announced to a single point of failure. Now, the honest catch in this story is that PCB manufacturing is, well, genuinely difficult, and capital alone does not solve it. Advanced multi-layer HDI boards require copper trace widths under 75 microns. Controlled impedance must be maintained to within 10% tolerance across the entire board. Thermal management, layer registration, and wire drilling precision are all processes problems that take years of yield management to master. Now, most Indian fabs currently produce single and double-sided boards for low complexity applications. The gap between that and the advanced multi-layer boards that AI servers, 5G base stations, and defense electronics require is, well, not just a funding gap. It is a process knowledge gap built over decades in Taiwan, South Korea, and China. And closing it requires time, talent, and sustained technical commitment alongside the capital. LionCircuits' 12-layer capability target is precisely where that gap begins to close. Vijaypura is actually not just a traditional electronics hub. The district has historically been, well, known for agriculture, sugar manufacturing, and the ancient Adil Shahi architecture that draws visitors from across the country. Now, a 100-acre AI-driven PCB mega campus here, backed by Karnataka Industries Minister M.B. Patil under the Invest Karnataka initiative, is actually the same argument Zoho made when it built its hardware R&D team in Nagpur. Deep tech does not require a traditional tech postcode. It requires the right policy, the right capital, and the right engineering commitment. Murli Srinivasa has put 10 years of his professional life behind that very, well, endeavor. The blueprint draws from the way Texas Instruments expanded its semiconductor fabs in Dallas. Not one large monolithic factory, but multiple fab units built over time on a single integrated campus, each adding capacity as demand grows. And, well, automated components warehouse for same day or next day dispatch. PCBA lines scaling with customer volume. Research and development covering not just PCB, but semiconductors and advanced applied engineering through LionCircuits, the dedicated infrastructure team. The US-India ICET framework has specifically identified electronic supply chain depth as a bilateral priority, which means the policy conditions for this kind of investment are better aligned today than at any point in the last 2 decades. Now, if that model takes root in Vijaypura, the import dependency starts to close, and the manufacturing capability that builds around it compounds over decades in ways that, well, finished product assembly never could. And now, of course, is the time for the front page take. India's technology ambitions are quite real, and the investments arriving to support them are very palpable. The component supply chain, the boards that carry every circuit in every device, has been imported for too long. The ECMS exists to change that fact. The India Semiconductor Mission exists to obviously transform it. The factories are being built, the fabs are going up, and the process knowledge gap is the one variable that money alone cannot accelerate. Vijaypura is not the address anyone expected this story to start from. That is precisely what makes it worth watching out for. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the IIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Now, for months, AI was actually the trade that could do no wrong. Stocks went up, then came up again. Chip makers became some of the most valuable companies on earth. But today, that story has well found a crack. Because, well, across Asia, the selling turned into panic. Asian markets tumbled hard on Friday as global tech sell-off gathered pace, and South Korea took the worst of it. The Kospi plunged more than 8%, triggering a circuit breaker that halted trading for 20 minutes. That's actually the second time this week the Korean market hit the emergency brakes. The third trading curb in 3 days, and the Kospi is now heading for a weekly loss of nearly 10%, which wasn't, well, so much of a dip. It was more like a stampede for the exits. And it didn't stop at Korea, right? The fear spread across the entire region. Now, I would like to draw your attention in terms of what has the damage seemed like. Japan's Nikkei 225 fell nearly 5%, briefly slipping below 69,000. SoftBank, the AI mega investor, plunged more than 12%. Samsung has dropped over 7%. SK Hynix sank close to 9%. Well, honestly, these are not names that one trifles with. Samsung and SK Hynix alone make up nearly half the Kospi's entire value. So when they fall, the whole market falls with them. But here's the part that's almost ironic. The thing that spooked investors wasn't weak AI demand, it was the cost of AI itself. Apple has warned of higher hardware costs, raising prices on Macs and iPads, pointing directly to rising memory and storage prices. And that actually might have been the reason to have lit up the fuse. Because if AI infrastructure is getting this expensive, investors started asking the question which was making them very uncomfortable. When does all this spending actually turn into profit? And well, there was more. Reports surfaced that OpenAI may delay its long-awaited IPO, possibly all the way to 2027. Now, as it struggles to lock in demand at $1 trillion valuation, for SoftBank, one of the biggest AI investors on the planet, that removed a major reason to keep buying. Now, let me just try to add this all up for you. Rising costs, a delayed IPO, stretched valuation, and a market that had simply climbed too far, too fast. Now, here's what actually the bears are starting to talk about. The Kospi was roughly up 90% this year. When a market turns that hot, it doesn't take much to send traders and their algorithms sprinting for the door. As one strategist actually puts it across, this volatility is evidence of excessive froth, and it raises real questions about whether the rally can last. Now, in other words, the higher the tower climbs, the more nervous everyone gets about the top. But honestly, also, we need to be very fair, as we always are on Front Page. Not everyone is panicking because the long-term AI story hasn't actually yet reached a point of complete fracture. I would like to consider this, and would request you to consider it along with me. SK Hynix and Samsung have HBM orders locked in through 2027. Both are ramping memory capacity quite aggressively. And just this week, Micron has posted blockbuster earnings. Many analysts argue this is a pause after a massive rally. Not so much a collapse in fundamentals, more like a gut check moment. Not the end of the game. Now, of course, let us step back. This week alone, Qualcomm bet billions on AI data centers. Micron sold out of memory through 2027. Amazon has invested $13 billion into Indian infrastructure. The AI build-out is still racing forward, but the market has delivered a warning. The spending is real, and so is the cost of sustaining it. And here, of course, is the front page take. Now, this is the moment that AI trade met gravity of sorts. For months, the only direction was up. Today, investors were reminded that even the strongest rallies tend to wobble. The technology may be the future, for sure, but the stock prices have to be paid for in the present. Now, the question I have for you, is this the start of the AI bubble deflating? Oh, wow, interesting that we brought that up. Or just another shakeout before the next leg hits higher? Please do let us know. What are your thoughts in the comments below? This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. India has just joined one of the world's most important AI alliances, and it's actually about who controls the future supply chain of AI itself. But, well, before we move deeper into this story, which I believe is quite a milestone, I would request you to please like, share, and subscribe. And honestly, thank you while you're doing it, although that won't have any bearing on the rest of the story, but truly a moment to appreciate all of your support. Thank you again. Now, of course, what has India done? India has officially joined Pax Silica. It is a US-led strategic coalition designed to build trusted supply chains for critical minerals, semiconductors, and artificial intelligence. The move comes as New Delhi and Washington work to strengthen ties through a proposed trade deal and a broader technology partnership after a period of, well, strained relations. Pax Silica was first launched in December of last year. Its objective is to build a secure, resilient, and innovation-driven ecosystem for the technologies powering the AI era, which includes, well, everything from critical minerals to semiconductor manufacturing to AI infrastructure itself, and eventually entirely new industries that don't even exist today. The first Pax Silica summit was held in Washington on the 12th of December. Partner countries signed the Pax Silica Declaration, a document outlining a shared vision for deep economic and technological cooperation. India officially signed the pact during the AI Impact Summit in New Delhi. The signing ceremony was attended by Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav and US Envoy to India, Sergio Gore. Now, according to Gore, Pax Silica is a coalition built around capabilities. US Undersecretary of State for Economic Affairs, Jacob Hellberg, described it as a declaration that the future belongs to those who build and to countries that work together. Now, originally launched with countries including Australia, Israel, Japan, Qatar, Singapore, South Korea, the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom, and Greece, Pax Silica now includes 35 countries. India's inclusion follows an invitation extended by the United States just last month. Now, since then, the alliance has expanded rapidly. New members announced at the second summit include Argentina, Germany, the Netherlands, Chile, Costa Rica, Kazakhstan, Panama, and the European Union. Now, the Pax Silica Declaration recognizes that reliable supply chains are essential for economic security, which is quite encouraging. It also describes AI as a transformative force for long-term prosperity. Now, according to the declaration, future economic growth will increasingly flow through every layer of the AI ecosystem. Now, perhaps the most interesting message came from Jacob Hellberg. Countries that accelerate private investment and innovation will define the AI era. His vision is an AI ecosystem that strengthens economies, encourages innovation, and reinforces the rule of law. Now, India's delegation included Electronics and IT Secretary S. Krishnan, Ministry of External Affairs Additional Secretary Nagaraj Naidu, and representatives from the Indian industry. But during the summit, the delegation held discussions with governments and businesses on expanding collaboration in resilient technology supply chains. Joining Pax Silica strengthens India's long-term strategy as well, I believe. And here, of course, is the front page take. Now, countries are beginning to realize that controlling AI extends to securing every link in the supply chain behind AI models. Now, whoever builds that ecosystem builds the future of AI. Today, India's entry into Pax Silica signals that it wants to become not just a consumer of AI, but a key builder of the global economy. The question I would like to ask all of you watching is this: As countries race to secure AI supply chains, will the future of AI be decided by algorithms or by whoever controls the chips, minerals, and infrastructure behind those models? Well, please do let us know. What are your thoughts in the comments below? This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the IIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. India has one of the largest startup ecosystems in the world. But you know what? There's a catch. More than 80% of India's startup founders still come from just 5 cities, which means millions of aspiring entrepreneurs across the country never really get the same access to funding, mentorship, or visibility. Now, Gautam Adani wants to change that fact. But before we deep dive, I would really request you to like, share, subscribe. Yeah, because I mean, you know what? This is truly an inspirational story. And we really always thank you for your support. Now, for what did Adani do? On his 64th birthday, the Adani Group chairman has launched a nationwide initiative called Vande Bharatam. Its mission is to discover innovators, entrepreneurs, and problem solvers from every corner of India. Now, unlike many startup competition, Vande Bharatam isn't limited to registered startups. Anyone can apply. Yes, you who is watching. Now, whether you have just an idea, a prototype, an early stage venture, or for that matter, even an established business, age, educational background, profession, none of it matters. If you have an entrepreneurial idea, you're eligible. The initiative will cover all Indian states and union territories with more than 800 districts and multiple Indian languages. The program isn't just focused only on technology startups. Applications are being invited from sectors including technology, manufacturing, agriculture, sustainability, which is a very important one, traditional crafts, and community-led solutions. The Adani Group is also creating dedicated pathways for women entrepreneurs, tribal and rural entrepreneurs, Divyang entrepreneurs, and community-based innovators solving local problems. Because sometimes innovation begins inside of a wonderful village. Now, every application will go through a structured evaluation process. A district panel will assess innovation, entrepreneurial potential, real-world impact, and scalability. Further details on the jury, assessment process, and selection stages will be announced in times to come. Following state and regional rounds, 75 finalists will be selected. They'll travel to Ahmedabad for an intensive program featuring mentorship, industry interactions, and engagement with investors and business leaders. Now, according to the Adani Group, finalists will receive access to mentors, investors, industry leaders, which I think is a big one, incubation support, and prize money, with category-wise awards to be announced later. Now for the grand finale. It is scheduled around Independence Day. But the program won't end there, which is heartening. Instead, it is expected to become an ongoing platform connecting entrepreneurs with investors, mentors, and fellow innovators long after the competition has concluded. Now, this initiative comes at an important moment. India today ranks among the world's leading startup ecosystems, as I had mentioned at the top of the news. Yet, the benefits remain heavily concentrated. More than 4 out of every 5 startup founders still emerge from only 5 cities, leaving vast parts of the country underutilized. Now, as India works towards its vision of becoming a Viksit Bharat by 2047, expanding entrepreneurship beyond metropolitan cities could become very well just as important as creating new unicorns. And here, of course, is the front page take. Now, reflecting on his journey, Gautam Adani said he started with nothing. He said everything he achieved came from the opportunities provided by the soil of Bharat. He believes talent has never been India's problem. Yes, he's right. If initiatives like Vande Bharatam succeed or others as such, India's next wave of entrepreneurs may not just come from Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Mumbai, Delhi, or Pune. They may come from districts that have never been, well, before appeared on India's startup map. Here's the time where I ask you that, well, interesting question. Can India truly become the world's innovation capital if opportunity finally reaches every district? Or do you feel there are lots of other caveats which still need to be addressed? Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adani, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ml file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Pi project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So just this is the app where you have a Pi cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker, and these things come automatically. You can click on data store. You can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adani, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ml file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Pi project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So just this is the app where you have a Pi cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker, and these things come automatically. You can click on data store. You can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
Yesterday morning, Apple's online store went dark. When it came back on, the prices had changed. MacBook Air up $200, MacBook Pro went up by $300 approximately, and these are approximate prices. iPad Air up $150, and then the Mac Studio was shooting up to almost in the range of about $1,300. Now, interestingly, these are not new products, or for that matter, any new features were added. Just higher numbers on hardware people have been buying, since almost yesterday morning. Apple's stock resultantly fell more than 6%. Its worst single day since April of 2025. Now, Tim Cook had warned this was coming, described it as a situation Apple could no longer absorb. DRAM prices, the working memory in every device we own, rose 98% in the first quarter of 2026 alone, and is set to climb another 58 to 63% this quarter. The industry has a name for it, Ramageddon, and the cause is the same, AI infrastructure boom. And of course, we on Front Page have been covering this for quite some time. Now, the data centers, the GPU superclusters, the AI servers, all of them consume the same memory chips that go into our MacBooks. And right now, AI is winning the fight for them. Supreet Kondinya, as always, the brilliant senior tech journalist at AIM, has been covering this very, very well, incisively, and he is going to be sharing with us what are his insights and how does, well, probably things turn around, if at all, as we move forward. Welcome to Front Page, Supreet.
Thank you.
Truly a pleasure.
Thank you, Sudhi.
And as always, I have to ask you this. So, Supreet, do you think we are cooked?
Good one. But I was just seeing a post today in the morning. The only thing that Apple hasn't increased the price of is its cleaning cloth. So that's it's never
Strange,
seen before.
no?
Yep.
But the fact, because generally speaking, Supreet, one tends to kind of correlate it to whenever there is a new product launch or a
Exactly.
feature, etc.
Exactly.
This time around, there is nothing like that which is taking
Exactly.
place, but the prices have gone up significantly.
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly. I mean, one is, of course, I mean, there's only one reason for it. It's the entire demand for the memory units that are now increasingly being allocated to AI infrastructure companies, less so for consumer electronics. And Apple has said that they tried to absorb these costs for a while, but they couldn't do it anymore.
Correct.
Because Apple's been on a decently successful run over the last few months. I think the WWDC conference was quite
Sure.
successful.
Sure.
iOS 27 was very good. I mean, whether the new Apple Intelligence is good or not is debatable, but at least the new features that came into iOS 27 in terms of increasing the battery life or optimizing the performance were well observed by people, even who were using the iPhone 11, the older generation of iPhones, and even the developer beta versions, which tend to be very buggy, which are only meant for testing, were quite stable as well. So people thought that, okay, iOS is now pretty stable.
Sure.
So what I'm trying to say is that Apple had an overall a positive sentiment across the ecosystem over the last few weeks, but then now again, for them to come out like this, it's pretty devastating for the entire company to just come out and announce a price hike to all of its products essentially.
Fair point.
So, yeah.
I mean, what you're talking about, but then again, like I had mentioned, and I'll share the numbers
Sure.
with you, which I'm pretty sure you're aware of. The DRAM contract prices have risen by 98% in Q1
Exactly.
of 2026. There is a further expectation of them to go up by 58 to 63% as we keep moving along in the year ahead.
Right.
NAND flash following the same trajectory. Now, the
Right.
point I want to ask you is, Tim has called this unavoidable.
Right.
Okay. Please walk us through this aspect of Ramageddon, because obviously it sounds very ominous, but
Right.
I would like for us to understand from you
Right.
what are the genuine long-term ramifications, no pun intended, on this.
Right. I mean, it's very tough because, and I quote, even Tim Cook with in an interview with Wall Street Journal said that this was unlike anything he had seen in any area across the last 40 years. And even Elon Musk, weighed in on the situation today, and he said the biggest price jump in anything that we've ever seen. Long term, it's very difficult to predict how these memory prices will stabilize or not. The only hope from a technical point of view is that AI models today, engineers and researchers are obviously focusing on ways where AI models use less memory by optimizing their KV cache. They also they require less storage. Small language models are getting better and better. And the overall culture of building more powerful models solely through increasing its size and the amount of resources
has been the
it
case.
consumes. That has been the case. But if we see a drastic turnaround in the ways with which AI models are deployed or the kind of AI models that come out, that's probably going to alter the situation a bit. For example, even with Anthropic, the latest model is making waves for its risks in cybersecurity and its capabilities in that as well.
Oh, for sure.
But if more and more models start making headlines from Anthropic and OpenAI, look, this is such a small model, consumes memory by less memory by an exponential factor, and gives you the same performance of the current model that you're using, probably that can bring a shift. But overall, I mean, two components. You got the storage component and the working memory,
Correct.
the RAM component. Both of these prices have exceedingly increased because there's a very huge gap between the supply and demand. And demand has been soaring, right? Everyone wants the best GPUs.
For sure.
Everyone's entering the chip market today.
Right.
OpenAI announced a new chip.
Correct.
Forget about everyone wanting new GPUs. They want
Jalapeno.
to. Jalapeno. Exactly. Jalapeno chips. That's the wordplay that they intended. But everyone wants to make chips of their own. They're signing new deals.
Google, as far as the
Exactly,
TPUs is
the TPU
concerned.
one. There's rumors that Intel invested Samba Nova is raising a round of funding. These companies are growing. When compute market is growing, of course, this is the reason why the memory market has taken a toll.
Tell me this,
But,
Supreet,
yeah.
you just kind of mentioned the fact that, engineering solutions should actually now move towards
Right.
coming up with, a method which it does not really, let's say, pressurize the memory so much.
Right.
Probably that could be the way forward.
Right.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I remember recently Google had launched something where they were talking about a model which
Right.
was essentially allowing the developer community or the users to say, all right, if you're doing the heavy work, it would then come in with usage in terms of, it will be very clear, visible to you that this is how much the token is. Because if there is some very basic method that you're working with the AI model on, for example, let's say writing scripts or,
Right.
things like that, you do not need like a bazooka to kill a
Right.
mosquito. That was the
Exactly.
thought behind it.
Yeah, I think that's also the thought that's resonating with most experts today in the token maxing era, which eventually, it's this domino effect, right?
Right.
Where there's this one employee using a lot of tokens to write an email to his boss asking for leave.
Correct.
And that cascades into NVIDIA securing more and more memory modules, right? So the overall culture these days, and it's not just Apple, right? All these tech companies, Uber, Salesforce, many other companies have had troubles in the AI model expenditure, where everybody is consuming more and more tokens for everything. Everybody is using the most powerful model for everything.
Apparently, it's like a metric
Exactly.
here. People are
Exactly.
encouraged to do it.
Exactly. So now people who are encouraged
At
but
one
that
point,
bell curve,
right.
took the other side of its curve, and now people are being restricted, right? So there needs to be a widespread culture of knowing when to use AI models, knowing when to use what AI models.
Correct.
If you need to use an AI model at all, and then knowing when to use the most resource heavy token
Sure.
model. I mean, that way you could have a reverse cascading effect where people realize that, okay, you can do more with less. And if we have more and more, optimization techniques, when, let's say, the thing is now, look, there's so much research out there, right? There's so many models today. You find quantized versions of AI models, which are less precise versions, right? Floating point 4 models, which consume less resources. But do enterprises today and do organizations today have it in them to take this model,
Most importantly, the trust.
trust them, even if they trust them, to plug that model instead of the more powerful model
Correct.
that they're using? There's a lot of replumbing that needs to go around.
Sure.
If today, look, companies are realizing that they're spending a lot of money. They also need to evaluate whether the cost to optimize this spending is even worth it, right? You need to spend a lot more if you want to rewire your
Optimize,
entire
I
AI
agree.
sort of
Absolutely
harnessing.
agree.
So, I mean, this is going a little tangential to the Apple conversation, but this is what's happening.
No,
in
it's
the lowest,
important for us to kind of,
exactly.
bring that
This is
up.
what's happening in the lowest of the lowest levels, right? We need enterprises to realize and probably get more and more expertise in orchestrating models, building a better model pipeline so that they end up spending less money.
Yes.
They end up buying lesser chips. The demand slightly, I wouldn't say goes down, but balances
At least somewhere
itself
kind of.
into its natural
Which brings me to
course of
this.
action.
AI intelligence is something that you mentioned when you were talking about this, right?
Right.
In WWDC, there was this like a great fillip to that entire conversation. Everyone seemed to be quite happy about the runway that now Apple has
Right.
got ahead of itself. Now, the point is, Apple's AI ambitions are being paid for by consumers. Supreet.
Exactly.
Because AI infrastructure companies have consumed the chips Apple needed. So
Exactly.
coming back to that and connecting to what you and I were talking about,
Right.
does Apple Intelligence actually justify what people are now being asked to pay?
Right. I mean, for one, I think even the next year's iPhone is going to cost expensive. Tim Cook has confirmed that with the Wall Street Journal. Some expert estimates say that now you got your Pro iPhone starting at $1,099. If they were to maintain a 47% hardware gross margin on it, that will need to increase to 1,371.
Wow.
Right? That will increase your iPhone price by a hefty amount.
Wow.
Now, when people continue to buy it, right? Of course, with Apple Intelligence, there's also this huge thing where it's 2 years too late, right?
Yeah, there's always been a question mark on that.
Exactly. So whatever they announced 2 years ago with Siri was exciting, but it's only being realized today, right? What Apple has done with Apple Intelligence, solely in terms of justifying whether it will be worth it paying whatever the excess amount for the iPhone, probably not. I'll tell you why. Because one, the new Siri AI, even with Gemini, even with it deriving its knowledge from distilling Gemini, it's probably going to be good for your chatbot conversations and all of that.
True.
And probably some of the features that Siri allows you to take within Apple's apps, for example, like drafting an email, autonomously editing a photo, editing a bunch of things.
Or other AI models to do that.
So this is one advantage, right? Now, let's say you want to do a quick reminder, clear off tasks, and the new Siri AI brings deeper integrations into Apple's first-party apps, but that's still not enough if you were to compare it with what Google Pixel does or what Gemini does in Google Pixel. And number two is why Apple's intelligence is not as exciting is because today the on-device AI usage is moving more on the agentic route, right? What Siri is doing is it's calling tools, it's calling features and taking actions autonomously. But what you'd expect something like that to do in 2026 is use the app on its own, refer the user interface and click on your own.
Based on the behavior.
Exactly. So yeah, click on your own, take a computer use action on your own and just perform whatever action that you need by the AI model itself acting as the user of the app, right? But that does not happen with Siri. Siri has a predefined set of functions that it needs to call and only those kind of things work. But with Gemini, that's not the case, right? With the latest Pixel 10, it can take a lot of actions on your behalf by using the app itself. Now, Apple obviously does not want to do this because it sort of diminishes the entire privacy ethos that their products are built
Which has been their legacy in a big way.
Exactly. And number three, one could also argue that the Apple Intelligence and the new AI Siri allows third-party developers to integrate automation into Siri. For example, let's say WhatsApp, right? Now, WhatsApp might use the new Apple's developer tooling, which is App Intents, to build a new autonomous feature where you say, hey, write a message to Sudhi that I'm going to do this, do that, and where you send a WhatsApp message through Siri. Look, that might not be possible because why would Meta do it? If Meta does that, which means it's improving Siri, right? It's reducing the screen time on WhatsApp. It's reducing the exposure that you get towards sponsored content and advertising on WhatsApp. So it's not in the best interests of these third-party, makers to integrate with Siri because it reduces the time that you spend on their apps. And even with Google, right? Why would Google integrate a feature with Siri to help you write an email, right?
It's because Google
because Google wants you to use the Gemini inside Gmail's app.
It's a clear conflict of interest.
Exactly. And even though if some indie developers and small-time developers say, you know what, we don't care about these conflicts of interest, we're going to build some tooling to use Siri, it's incredibly hard, right? Because you need to build a specific feature, you need to build specific mappings so that Siri ends up using your app. But with Gemini, yes, there is developer tooling, but it's quite less because Gemini can open the apps on your behalf on the latest Pixel 10 series and take actions on its own.
So do you think that it's a
exactly? So there's a huge difference in terms of the value that the competition is offering with intelligence on smartphones, but with what Apple's doing, it's still far behind. There's a lot of caveats associated with it. For now, it just works. And it's impossible that ChatGPT has like nearly 70 million users on iOS itself, right? It's very unlikely that someone's going to have a conscious thought that now that Siri is good, let me default to Siri instead of ChatGPT. Just one moment, shout out to this founder, Jesai Tarun from Sentient OS, who took his time to explain to me all the technicalities of Siri.
Oh, absolutely.
Because without him, I wouldn't be in a position to
of such authority and
sorry, moving on.
No, please do that again because it's important.
Jesai Tarun of Sentient OS.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. No, but then that brings me to a point of the verdict, because that is important for me to ask you specifically on the Apple Intelligence bit, Supreet. So do you feel that they kind of predicted it wrong? They've kind of got that entire play wrong. You're expecting the customers now because of the Apple Intelligence, but then there are so many different caveats.
Right.
You've overpriced. I wouldn't say overpriced, but you've increased the prices.
Right.
Because you're saying, okay, I can't absorb it anymore in terms of the input.
Right. But there's nothing to worry for Apple at all, right? Because
Specifically on this bit. I will have to come to the other bits.
Exactly. Look, I mean, for one, even when Apple intelligence was bad, very, very bad, people still bought the iPhone. The iPhone 16 and the 17 at certain quarters were some of the best selling iPhones, right?
Sure.
Today, the ecosystem across US and India, people buy iPhones not solely because they're specifically interested in what they're doing in a certain sector, because of the overall
Brand
reliability.
value as well.
Brand value is a very cliched term,
But-
because it adds a sort of vagueness to it. But the thing is, you never go wrong buying an iPhone. Right? It's not an experiment. Longevity-wise, they've proved, right? It's the de facto choice if budgets are not a constraint. Even though the iPhone prices will go up next year, the worst that Apple will see is people continue using their older iPhones more.
Yeah.
But if someone is spending $1,399 already on the iPhone 17 Pro, let's say the 512GB or even 256GB model, I don't think they won't
won't cringe about let's say spending another $200, $300.
Exactly. So for someone buying an iPhone today, people historically who have bought an iPhone from a consumer point of view, I don't think they want an iPhone because they wanted an iPhone, right? People who bought the best iPhone, they've bought it because they wanted the best iPhone.
And it's also, let's be honest, it is that sort of maybe a statement call it, plus the fact that, generally sentiment, Supreet, has been that, buddy, you buy this, it'll for sure last you for another 5 years, 6 years, it won't slow down, etc.
So coming to your point,
talk about the battery,
coming to your point, I think, I know where it's coming from.
Right.
I see your phone. So coming from an Apple intelligence point of view, it's going to work better for sure, but I don't think it's going to be a definitive factor in people coming up and saying, look, you increase the price of the iPhone. Neither is the value that I'm getting for the new software updates are good. So I probably don't know. And this little counterintuitiveness, this little thing that I've also observed is that now Apple's iPhone is expensive, right? It's going to get expensive.
Sure.
So which means consumers are not going to upgrade to the latest iPhones. But for consumers who already planned to upgrade to the latest iPhone, they already had lesser reasons to do so, because what iOS 27 brings, the latest update brings, is an increased level of stability and reliability, both in terms of performance and battery life. This is one of the first times in the last 10-15 years that an iOS update makes your iPhone more and more stable and improves the battery life. That's their pitch this time around. So I don't know. It seems like this weird full circle moment where Apple thought that, look, we know the memory price is going crisis is coming. We know we cannot absorb the costs. We know we cannot price the iPhone at the same price next year too. So why don't we do this? Why don't we ensure that there's this person who can't afford the latest iPhone, but also give him a reason not to upgrade? So everyone's happy. Someone's going to say, you know what, I know the next iPhone's expensive, but I wasn't probably going to buy it anyway because the iOS 27.
But let's face it,
that's a hypothetical
I know, but Supreet, let's be honest. Then, I mean, going back to the point of it being counterintuitive, the way I probably understand it is, wait a minute, man, I've created a constant, loyal customer base.
Right.
In India, if at all we were to talk about it, that customer base is expanding. You and I had spoken about it, if you remember.
Exactly.
That Apple has a huge kind of a, way ahead in India, because it's converting a lot of people in India who are first-time users.
Exactly.
So that's excitement. So you obviously at some level or the other know, right, that, okay, man, I cannot help it. I'll have to pass on the pricing to the consumer base.
Right.
But let me sweeten the pot a little bit.
Exactly.
Maybe it's just that.
Exactly. It's probably just that. But again, given how iOS 27's development would probably have started like 12 months before, I don't know if they had the foresight. Yeah. But in hindsight, Apple thought, you know what, we made a good
We might have just right.
But again, coming back to India, right? Look, the concern is for MacBooks. MacBooks came at incredible value in India.
Fair.
The MacBook M1, right, came for around 69,000. If you had a good deal going around 55 to 60,000,
which is
incredible value, right? People have used it for years.
Value for money, yeah.
Students, anyone who's buying a laptop are willing to spend, because this is a very, very near and dear infrastructure that's going to help them with their studies, business and college. So it's one of those areas where people are okay spending a premium because they do not want anything to sort of hinder their professional ambitions or academic ambitions. So now the MacBook Neo started at 69,000, now it's 79,000. The MacBook Air M5, 1,19,000 is what it was available for with discounts you could get it for 1 lakh or 1,09,000. Now it starts at 1,49,000.
Wow.
Right?
That's a steep jump.
That's 30,000 higher. If someone made a decision that, look, I'm going to spend 1 lakh for a MacBook Air M5, that's probably going to last my college. It's also going to help me with my first 2-3 years of work, because you can expect these machines to last a good 7-8 years.
For sure.
Right? Someone would be more conscious to assess whether that 30,000 is worth the extra money, right? And there's also a bunch of funny, I wouldn't say funny, a bunch of moments of crisis where I think Ashutosh Srivastava, I think you've spoken to him multiple times on front page. He pointed a 45.3% price increase in the MacBook Pro M5 Max overnight. Like he says, he bought it in May for the top end version for around 7 lakh rupees. Now it's up to 10.35 lakh.
I think that is going to get a beating.
So exactly. Enterprises, consumers, large scale companies who have bought MacBooks, everybody, I think that's going to, it's already, causing.
But tell me this, will that also then, okay, so let's say, Supreet, then with platforms like, the various online commerce platforms that we have, I'm sure they would have a lot of stocks, etc. Right? But it would have a huge impact on them as well with these prices being announced. I'm sure.
I'm not sure whether you're allowed to sell old stocks at new MRP, because this.
No, I believe that is not the case.
That is not the case. But again, now because the overall sentiment, everybody is talking about how, hey, look, MacBooks are now expensive.
Correct.
Now, what if an e-commerce vendor who was selling 1,10,000 MacBook
might just
MRP,
take it up.
They're selling it for like around 90,000, but now they might stick to the MRP sticker itself, saying, hey, what everybody is saying MacBook is expensive. There you go. I'm sorry, this happened. So I mean, everyone is at their own discretion. They can sell anything at MRP. But yeah, I mean,
and you can't really do anything about it. I mean, how can you regulate that? I mean,
exactly.
You just can't.
You have the maximum reselling price, MRP. That's you're going to say that. So I think the existing stocks, in lieu of the current sentiment, would be sold at MRP, because there's also going to be huge demand now. I see tweets saying this is the time to buy anything new. It's today or never. I've seen people yesterday, run to Chroma and Reliance Digital. I'm not kidding, right? I don't want to name this person, I know. So ran to Chroma and bought a MacBook, right? Because perhaps you've seen a lot of people contemplating over 3-4 months saying, should I buy a MacBook or not? Should I buy a MacBook or not? But then they're at this cusp of a moment where, since starting tomorrow, MacBook prices are going to they're going to shoot up. You have the only 3-4 hour window to make
figure
a decision.
it out.
So people will continue, flocking.
Okay, so tell me this now. As far as from the manufacturing point of view is concerned, now this is just something that came to my mind. Apple has been manufacturing, and the volumes are insane.
Right.
So which means that they were absorbing these prices as far as, let's say, as a component price for DRAM for some time now, and when it's gone up this significantly. But what about the stocks that probably Apple has lying at their end?
Right.
Has they put some sort of a deadline to it, Supreet, saying that, okay, by such time it will definitely go up? You get my point where I'm coming from?
No, I'm not sure that's the case. I don't think this would affect the existing stocks, because I mean, they're all obviously like packaged and they're ready to ship.
Fair.
I think because again, MacBooks and Mac Pros, you've seen the Mac Minis. Mac Mini is probably out of stock everywhere, right? And this is a device that's actively in production. So it's very likely the Mac Mini that someone would buy in the coming few days was a newly manufactured unit that came out of the shipping lines like a few weeks ago.
Right.
And Apple decided that, look, even to satisfy the orders that we manufactured 3-4 months ago that are still on our way to stores in the United States, we cannot absorb it anymore.
Makes sense.
So yeah, I think
makes sense.
I think the pricing changes are immediate. Of course, they're immediate on the website. It's all changed. I think anything that Apple is directly selling or directly selling to customers or D2C or directly selling to businesses will have the new prices coming.
Okay, now a little bit about, let's say, the overall ecosystem method or SK Hynix secured over 2/3 of HBM supply orders for NVIDIA's Vera Rubin GPUs, Supreet.
Yes.
The same, please make more moment. Jensen Huang, remember that entire discussion, very, very, goes on to sign this saying, please make more. the Yotta supercluster, the Google Vizag hub, all of it is consuming the same memory Apple needs.
Exactly.
Fair? Now, so is this the moment AI infrastructure on the whole and consumer electronics have in a way come to a head? Have they collided?
I mean, for sure they have. Right today, I don't know. See, you want to develop the best AI models today, and you want a good cohort of GPUs.
Sure.
But to use the very AI models on at the lowest of the lowest levels, of course, all of us access the most advanced AI models on our consumer electronic devices. So yeah, that points a little bit of irony. What happens if I can't buy the best tech that gives me the very access to the AI models that are consuming the very amount of memory that my tech products are not being able to get? But again, the only advantage is most of us who use the MacBooks, the Mac Minis, or even the iPhones that have taken a hit on the increase were accessing the models on the cloud. So perhaps I don't think at the end of the day, the AI companies are worried that will anyone use our AI model, because all of us in a way just are using their compute for everything, right?
For sure.
AI models are run in the cloud. Today, if there was a developer who was using Cloud Opus 4.8 on NVIDIA GPUs, he'll continue doing so. He probably doesn't have any a concrete reason to upgrade his MacBook just to use Claude's latest model. So that way, yes, they're colliding in certain ways. For example, there are many users
But do you see that day?
No, I
really.
don't think so. Because again, it's very difficult to predict. When I see when Elon Musk and Tim Cook say that these are things that
they haven't seen in the last 40
years. I have been in this space for what, three years at best, with working brains for 1.5 years. So I am not honestly sure.
Fair enough.
About what's going to happen.
Okay, the next one is this. I want to kind of bring in JP Morgan,
Right.
which is estimating DRAM and NAND could jump 10 to 15% of an iPhone's component cost today to more than 45%, Supreet.
Yep, exactly.
By 2027.
Right.
So automatically the question that I would like to ask you is this. The iPhone was untouched this round. How expensive could the next generation become, and where does Apple's pricing power tend to kind of hit a ceiling?
Right.
Yeah, because I mean, if they've done it with this, logically.
Yep. So some analysts say that if Apple chooses to absorb a minor margin, your baseline tag of Pro iPhones could come up to $1,299. We're talking about the Pro iPhones.
From where?
From $1,099.
That's okay.
That's okay. That's what I'm saying.
Marginal.
So marginal for the Pro iPhone. But still, for the baseline Pro iPhone, you're still going to pay $200 more. So that
pinches.
Right. That's the thing. If there are a group of users who would migrate to a Samsung or a Pixel just because of the $200 tag, I wouldn't say it's worrying. But hey, Apple still would lose whatever minor percentage of users. Some analysts also say that the Pro Max version could cross into a $1,499 starting bracket. And remember, Apple's also working on a foldable iPhone.
Yeah.
That is going to be around $2,000 or higher. Now, if they were to improve Apple intelligence features and more on-device processing, this would require more RAM to the iPhone 18 Pro series,
which then further drives up
the costs. But look, I think it's less. See, I'll tell you, when iPhone 10 came out, right, which after the iPhone 8, it started with a price tag of $1,000.
Sure.
Right? That was solely because it was a revolutionary change in the way the iPhone looked, the way the iPhone worked. It was the first time you had a bezel-less iPhone, which then became the standard for all smartphones.
That's not the case here.
Exactly what you pointed at the intro.
Right.
Pricing changes are justified if you have a revolutionary change in the way your iPhone works.
Absolutely.
This is not the case. You're conceding to market forces. The iPhone 10's price increase, yes, was also a factor of Apple conceding to market forces, but not solely that. You're still getting a brand new experience.
I agree.
People's minds were blown, right? When someone switched from an iPhone 8 to 10, one generation, right? But here, neither is the Apple intelligence showing any promise. Competitor products have had better AI features. So it's going to be very hard for Apple to justify the price of an iPhone. But I don't think the foldable one is going to come under a lot of scrutiny, because Apple can probably get away with the fact that, look, I know you're going to spend $2,000 on a new iPhone Fold, but hey, don't it's basically a new Apple device.
I understand. I mean,
So, yeah,
there I
that's-
get you completely. But
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, but you're right.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, let's be honest, consumer behavior, or for that matter, you and I
Exactly.
would go ahead and get excited about something.
Exactly. I mean, if the Pixel 11 today came up with a $200 increase.
$200, Supreet, in our context is well somewhere in the range of 19 to 20,000
Exactly.
bucks.
I'm not even getting to the India part, right?
So
India part
that's-
is fully different.
right.
But for example, because Google has access to Gemini, Google has access to such great small models like the Gemma 4, which is incredible.
Yes.
Has a cohort of research papers and great AI talent. I mean, they started the entire thing. They could probably be in a better position to, mask the entire memory pricing hike by saying that, look, I know memory pricing has given you a price increase, but hey, look at all these agentic AI features that we're bringing, right?
Correct.
But again, Apple has had a sweet position where they're saying the iOS 27 is going to be really, really good. So far, the reviews have been good. But yeah, again, that probably wouldn't
Do
make...
you think it justifies?
It wouldn't justify, because with the latest Pro iPhone, if you're buying a new iPhone 18 Pro, you're guaranteed to have a really good iOS experience, right? So that's the bare minimum expectation.
Exactly.
So yeah, Apple's in a very dicey situation today. But yeah, I think even in India, right, most of the iPhone buyers aren't the latest ones. You see a lot of them buying an iPhone.
The
14,
older
15,
versions,
older
yeah.
versions on sales. There's a good used market anywhere. But even the iPhone 17 made really good numbers when it launched in India, even the 16. So it's going to be really interesting as to how the base variants of iPhones are priced next year. But yeah, I mean, the Mac market is going to take a huge,
huge
hit
beating,
in India,
I
because
think.
even though the US pricing has increased, in India it's also increased by a further factor, right? It's the percentage is more. Probably in US, I think if a MacBook, I think, was increased by 25 to 30%, in India the same MacBook was increased by a factor of 40%, right? So India still needs to pay whatever that Apple tax. That
See your
comes in.
point. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Now, I mean, in a way to kind of sum up where we stand, I would again want to talk to you about Samsung and SK Hynix.
Yep.
And again, few numbers for you. Projected at 500 trillion won in
Yes.
combined operating profit in 2026. SK Hynix already paid bonuses averaging $95,000
Yes.
per employee. We all know about this one.
Exactly.
So this shortage, which is kind of challenging Apple, is making memory companies extraordinarily profitable, Supreet.
Exactly.
So the question I would like for you to finally kind of, take us home with is, who are the real winners here and how long does this cycle last? Well, you don't predict.
I mean, of course,
because none of us can.
objectively, memory companies have, well-deserved wins, right? I mean, you see Micron, SanDisk, Western Digital.
So then memory
Samsung.
becomes the new, in a way, like a cornerstone.
Yeah, exactly. Look, Samsung as a company, as a overall company, they've had struggles with their foundry, right?
Sure.
For example, I remember when Google moved away from Samsung for, in favor of TSMC for the Pixel series of devices, the Pixel 10. That's quite a disappointing news for Samsung, right?
Sure.
Their Exynos processors have always been at a subject of higher scrutiny, probably not as good as the Snapdragons or the Apple chips. Now they're having their moment, right? Well-deserved
Definitely,
companies
yeah.
who had extremely good focus on one area. It's paid off. You've
stuck to
often
it.
seen, it's brilliant, because often in the last few years, you've only seen, hey, Nvidia is the winner of the
Right,
AI
correct,
race.
you're right.
They are. But today, in your news, you're talking about Micron, SK
Yes,
Hynix,
yes.
Samsung, SanDisk, Western Digital. Of course, they're the biggest beneficiaries. But yeah, I think it's a very unique moment to be in. There's a lot of winners. Nvidia is a winner. Look, these companies employ a lot of people. These companies are all public companies. There are people who have made bets by investing in these companies, be it a retail investor or if you own the stock as an employee. There are a lot of people who have won in this race, right? And look, Samsung Electronics has so many employees in Bangalore.
Yeah,
if you
I agree.
traverse in Outer Ring Road, you see a lot of
I
Samsung
agree.
Electronics buses move past. A lot of people work at Nvidia in India. All of these employees, tens and thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees who've had stock options, are the beneficiaries of this entire boom. They're certainly not worried about not being one. They're not in a position where they can say, "Hey, I can't afford a new iPhone."
I was going to say
But
that.
probably they wouldn't want to, because
Correct.
now they've realized that, look, I'm going to reinvest this money. So
Or
yeah,
maybe
they're the real winners.
they just had the foresight.
Exactly.
Supreet.
They've had the
Quite-
foresight, right?
quite some time back,
There
and
are
they said, okay.
engineers at Micron who probably have worked 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Right? Even before these companies made your daily news, right?
Correct.
Today, even in mainstream papers in India, a company like SK Hynix, a relatively less known company, at least in mainstream circles, is now making headlines in newspapers in India. Right?
Which
What
is
does that
foresight.
mean for so many researchers today?
Oh, for sure.
Right? Researchers who've been thanklessly working.
For
There
quite
are
some
a lot
time.
of winners in this race. But yeah, I see the ecosystem. I'd like to call out a lot of these people just blatantly blaming the AI era by saying that, look, this is why we need to stop AI. This is why we need to stop just everything, stop building things and whatnot. It's such a shallow take on things. You fail to recognize so many winners in the ecosystem. You wanna
You know why? Because they never actually believe in coming into the spotlight. They've been working quietly and tirelessly.
I see famous personalities saying, look, this is why I hate AI. I mean, look, I believe that the AI companies have been in the wrong for multiple scenarios, but it's still probably
But
the
the
most
ecosystem.
it's probably the most promising technology that humanity has had since years. We've seen breakthroughs
I agree.
coming out. We'll continue to see breakthroughs. The way people have worked has changed. It's bringing a change.
But let's
to
be
a lot of
honest,
places.
Supreet, any technology, whatever it might be, fine. This one has definitely kind of, woken everyone up to a
Right.
whole new
Of course.
reality. But let's be honest, every technology still has its own course corrections, which is
Exactly.
what people are going
Exactly.
through. I feel as a collective sort of an understanding towards this, one just needs to be aware of those course corrections.
Exactly.
Realize where one is kind of, stepping wrong, correct yourself and keep moving.
Exactly. Look, I mean, that's the previous thing that I told you. It's the entire domino effect, right?
Yeah.
From starting in the coming future, if enterprises realize how effectively that they can optimize their AI expenditures, their token consumption, their compute consumption, if it starts improving at the very lowest level,
Yes.
right? Today, ChatGPT optimizes its AI models, right? Today, if you ask for a basic fact, like what is MS Dhoni's age, it's routed in such a way that
41.
Yeah, good. I mean, faster. Yeah, but if you ask such a question, ChatGPT routes it very cleverly that it does not route your query to
Suddenly
the
it'll-
most powerful model. It routes it to the cheapest model available because this is a very low stakes query, right? But of course, if you prompt and you manually select something and you do a bunch of things, when OpenAI and Anthropic realize that, okay, this is a very heavy query, there's a lot of stakes in it for me to get things right, obviously then it will route it to the more powerful model. But for people who have models themselves, who themselves are in the
The basic
control for
responsibility,
routing.
yeah.
Exactly. But I wouldn't be harsh in the way where we say responsibility because people haven't figured out, right?
What
And
my
it's-
point
yeah.
is, probably what I was trying to say was trying to be mindful of it.
Yeah, now people have.
Yeah.
Right? With Uber saying that
Yeah, $1,500 now, right?
yeah, cap for an employee. We see more and more of that, but then we also see where look, OpenAI is now increasing their forward deployed engineers initiative where they send FDEs, where they have this FDE network which helps enterprises. Look, we want you to be really good customers of OpenAI, but we also don't want you to get to a point where you end up hating us because we're making you spend so much money. So
Fair.
it's a collective effort. Enterprises are also, this is a very new technology to unwire,
And
rewire
it's
things.
okay
Yeah.
to be kind of, committing some mistakes,
Exactly.
etc.
The moment it becomes okay for companies to spend the cost on optimizing their AI costs, remember, optimizing AI costs itself brings
Is
in a
a-
huge expenditure.
Yes.
You need to unplug things, hire more technical people to do so. So until that breaks even, we'll continue seeing an unprecedented amount of usage among enterprises.
But
and
being
data
mindful
centers.
of it.
Yeah, being
I think
mindful
that's
of
important.
it. Yeah,
Finally,
that's about
it
that.
needs to be understood and embraced as a tool
Right.
more than anything else
Yeah, it's
to
just-
bring value to whatever he's doing.
Right.
One line answer now, finally, in conclusion. Do you feel a company can utilize this entire Apple hike in a big way? Another competitor maybe, which is maybe snipping on the heels, saying, okay,
No, I don't think so. Because
these are boring answers.
No, I'll tell you why. It's very hard.
I know.
This is the very reason why you call Apple the greatest
no
company
chink
in
in
the
the
world.
armor?
No, this is where the reason why you call Apple the greatest company in the world, because even despite this crisis, the worst thing that will happen to them is probably people will wait until the prices stabilize, but when they plan to upgrade, they will not go to Windows.
Okay.
They will not switch to Android.
Okay.
There will be people who will be doing so, but that fraction is going to be really,
Very
really
less,
small.
and it doesn't really hurt them.
Right? It will not hurt Apple in any way. Growth, people will continue to buy the latest iPhones. They're in a position where these devices are fill it, shut it, forget it. Remember, a Mac gives you less problems than Windows.
True.
It's historically proven.
I agree with
An iPhone dies less frequently than Android. You might debate me or hate me in the comment section for this, but that's the truth. Apple has nothing to worry, and I don't think this is a worry for the overall consumer electronics and the way
That we've established.
consumers have to bear the brunt. I mean, let's not undermine that, right? It's very unfair on the consumers. Apple has got nothing to worry.
Fair enough. There you have it. Thank you, Supreet. As always, you've
Thank
been
you,
such
Supreet.
a champ in terms of bringing all your views. As always, wonderful insights. Thank you so much. And well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I couldn't have said it better than Supreet, but maybe I'll just add one more line on top of that. And I would love for your comments on this one particular discussion, which was, does the company still remain an apple of your eye? Please do let us know. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adani, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ml file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Pi project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So this is the app where you have a Pi cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker, and these things come automatically. You can click on data store, you can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of rounding. So we have low confidence that the response is rounded.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adani, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ML file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Pi project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So just this is the app where you have a Pi cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker. And these things come automatically. You can click on data store. you can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Antara and you're watching Point Break. For the last 2 years, the conversation about Indian IT and AI has been dominated by one word and one word only: threat. Threat to jobs, threat to the service models, threat to the mass hiring pipelines that built some of the largest technology companies in the world right here in India. But something, viewers, has shifted. The companies that were supposed to be disrupted are now investing aggressively in AI. The firms that were supposed to shrink are now announcing new platforms, new business units, new growth guidance. So today we are asking a very different question. Not whether AI is a threat to Indian IT, but whether Indian IT has figured out how to make AI its next growth engine. And we are asking it to the people who are actually building the answer. I'm Antara. This is Point Break. Let's get right into it. Today I have with me two guests who, between them, represent both the strategic and the operational reality of what Happiest Minds is building in this space. Joseph Anantaraju is the co-chairman and the CEO of Happiest Minds Technologies. He's one of the co-founders of Happiest Minds and has over 25 years of experience helping technology and digital engineering companies unlock new levels of growth. In his expanded role as co-chairman and CEO, he now oversees all business divisions of the firm, including product and digital engineering services, infrastructure management and security services, as well as generative AI business service. He was recently conferred with the Distinguished Alumnus Award 2026 by BITS Pilani in the Corporate Leadership category. In fact, Joseph, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on Point Break. And of course, my next guest is Sridhar Manta, who is the CEO of Generative AI Business Services at Happiest Minds. He has over 27 years of experience in diverse technology, management roles, and is a technologist with hands-on experience. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here as well. In fact, what I was always also noting was that he was recognized as the AI Leader of the Year at the 3 AI ACME Awards, and he is the person at Happiest Minds most directly responsible for turning the AI opportunity into business. Sridhar, it's good to have you here, gentlemen. A very warm welcome to Point Break.
Thank you, Antara.
Thank you. All right. Let's start with the narrative shift here, because it is real, it is very much significant. 2 years ago, every conversation about Indian IT and AI was framed around risk, fewer jobs, shrinking demand. The end of the labor arbitrage model that built this entire industry. In fact, Happiest Minds reported financial year 26 revenues of 2,315 crores, growing 12.3%, surpassing 300 plus active customers and achieving a record. That is not a company in retreat, right? That is a company that is leaning in. So Joseph, my first question is to you. What really changed 2 years ago, the conversation was about AI as a threat to Indian IT. Today, Happiest Minds is reporting record pipelines and guiding for 12.5 growth in financial year 27. So what exactly happened in between?
Sure. So let me take this at two levels, Antara. One is I'll talk a little bit at the industry level, and then I'll get down to why Happiest Minds has positioned itself successfully and delivering the results that we are delivering. So if you look at the IT industry, AI I think poses both challenges and gives us opportunities, right? And we need to play defense and offense, and that's why you see that companies investing more. It took them a little time to understand, I feel, the overall Indian IT industry. And right now, I think both for optimization as well as in terms of driving revenue for our customers, we've kind of figured out the strategies on both sides. And when you talk specifically to Happiest Minds, I do feel proud of our leadership that we were able to understand that this is a transformative technology. And, when the minute, we were working on some of the LLMs much earlier, in 2019, 2020, 2021 with some of our EdTech customers, because they're very content heavy as an industry. And therefore, for them, experimenting with some of these LLMs very early made sense. We had helped them out. So we had some understanding of this technology, but, the whole ChatGPT and OpenAI, that was like an explosion, actually. It just took the world by storm. We realized that this is going to be a very transformative technology. We formed the Generative AI business unit, which Sridhar is a CEO of. The only company that has a separate business unit for generative AI, because our classical AI, the AI ML, that still sits with our analytics COE. And we've been doing that for ever since we started the company, and we helped a lot of customers very early in our lives, figuring out how to apply them for things like recommendation engine, personalization engine. I'm talking about 10, 12 years back when these were all new concepts. But generative AI was very different, actually, right? It could actually understand context and generate content on context on its own. And so we started the Generative AI business unit. And I believe that has been a big differentiator for us and a contributor to the kind of results that we've been able to declare and deliver, Antara.
Certainly, Joseph. Thank you for answering that with so much clarity. Sridhar, my next question is to you. You run the Generative AI Business Services unit, right? You have been inside this, I would say, transition from the beginning. When did it start feeling, less like a disruption and say more like an opportunity? Was there a specific moment or say a specific customer conversation that, changed the entire internal narrative?
Sure. So just building on what Joseph said, right? We all witnessed the iPhone movement.
Yes.
Right. So that is ChatGPT, right? Even though we worked with certain models like BERT, etc. prior to that, and we have decent understanding, right? So when ChatGPT came, the initial market segment where we looked at opportunities in the edutech space, Antara, because that's one of the largest segments for us. And naturally, you can visualize, and many students also, you would have witnessed using ChatGPT in the early stage itself for the homework purposes. Right. Later, of course, even the degree homeworks also people started doing. So that way, when everybody is contemplating whether it's an opportunity or not, our edutech customers realized, because they're all text heavy, they realized that it is live or die moment for them. Right. And before anybody started viewing it as an opportunity, they wanted to collaborate with us and start creating a 3-year roadmap. We are talking about ChatGPT 3.0 timeframe itself, right? Whereas other segments, right, this is around 2.5 years back, they were still thinking about, let me try a HR chatbot, small use case, right? So that I'll understand what this technology is. And that is when we realized, since edutech is very, very important segment for us, we realized the potential of the technology when others are experimenting, right? We started creating 3 years roadmap and started actually looking at enterprise class solutions with very, very early stages of ChatGPT itself, right? And from that point onwards, there is no looking back for us as well as industry, because everybody started doing the POCs and tried to move into the production stage. And then, of course, we saw the agentic AI wave happening as a layer on the top of the generative AI. So that way, we are fortunate to recognize it as part of the edutech industry very initially itself, Antara.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely, it's a massive, massive leap, and it's happened in a matter of years, right? My next question,
months.
Absolutely. My next question is to the both of you here. Would you say that we are witnessing the emergence of, say, a new growth cycle for Indian IT, or are we still very much in a period of uncertainty that is, for the lack of a better term, dressed up in a confident language? What do you have to say on that?
So let me first take that and let Sridhar jump in, Antara. See, in my view, as I said earlier, the whole AI revolution is what I would call, right? Offers a lot of opportunities, and there are also things that we need to be very cognizant of in terms of, on the SDLC side, productivity improvements, and therefore there'll be some crunch on, the overall sizing of teams and things like that. Yeah. But I do think that, the whole AI wave is in a little bit of its early stages, actually, and things are going to evolve. The 2-3 things that you can be sure of is that things will move much faster. If you see each and every technological change, the pace has been faster. Whether you look at computing to internet to digital and now to AI, I think the cycles are becoming much faster. That you can be sure of. And I think this one, there will be quite a bit of twists and turns. Each cycle brings twists and turns of its own, but this one I think will be a little bit more interesting. It'll be a little bit less predictable or deterministic, right? Okay. And therefore, I believe that companies will need to be very agile and adaptive to be successful. But as I said, when we talk about the whole overall Indian IT industry, I think it offers quite a lot of opportunities. And as long as the individual company can understand the challenge and opportunity and impact and adapt themselves, it will lead to different levels of success and but I believe overall that it will be a net positive for the Indian IT industry, just like all the other changes that you've seen. People, when we had the Y2K getting over, people were questioning, is there an opportunity for what will the Indian IT industry do? And we adapted and we got on to the internet revolution, did really well out there, helped a lot of customers. And then digital came, people were saying, hey, you're going to go to the cloud, and you have all of these iPhone type of UX. So will the industry be able to adapt? We did that and we continued growing. And I believe that we will do the same thing with AI out here, because there's a lot of need for the kind of capabilities and services that we bring to the table. And, as I said, Happiest Minds, we positioned ourselves really well by making AI central to our overall strategy and theme, embedding it into our tagline, AI first, agility always. So I believe that, there's a lot of opportunities for the Indian IT industry to continue growing and doing well.
Understood. Sridhar, do you
I'll add a little bit.
Yes,
sure.
please.
See, unfortunately, being a little older guy, I started even looking at assembly code to writing code in C to getting into Python kind of simpler languages, a lot of frameworks to now. English is a new programming language, right? When we talk about the AI threat, we are generally not talking about building AI solutions. Of course, that's always a positive thing because we'll be building more, right? We're always talking about what happens to all these software developers, software testers that are part of the Indian IT services. That is the biggest threat we tend to perceive. However, last 30 years, seeing each of the new productivity wave actually made people to build more. Right. And now in the very early days, when C language came, people thought that is English compared to writing in assembly language. Now, ultimately, you have to write some spec, right? Whether that is written in the code or written as 10 pages of document or 20 pages of document, right? Still, we require people who dictate, be it compilers in the past or be it AI today, what the code has to do, right? That can be written in any way. So that way, both the things are inevitable in the sense that how we write code has been always changing in the last 30 years. So it'll be in a different way. Maybe it is English, maybe it is spec-driven development, etc. Right? And the amount of applications we generate is constantly exploding. Anytime a new technology comes, any productivity gains come, it is not that as world, we create less, we create more. Hyper-personalized AI-based solutions. Right? Not just recommendation engines, like why the website looks exactly same. If I go to Amazon.com or Flipkart.com, take any example. Antara goes, Joseph goes, I go, it still looks same. Maybe there are some recommendations here and there. How about a hyper-personalization there? Right? So we can't even imagine the kind of features and the personalization and AI that can be add that explodes. Of course, the productivity gains will be offsetting it a little bit. So it is, at least in our personal opinion, net, all of us as Indian IT industry, as well as all the tech industry, will be writing a lot more in a different way and creating a lot more value to each other and the end customers is how we perceive it, Antara. It's a crystal ball question, but that's the confidence that we have.
Absolutely. And since we are, on this topic, 2 to 3 days ago, I believe, at Infosys's 45th annual general meeting, Nandan Nilekani said something that the entire Indian IT industry started talking about. He said, and I quote, I want to quote him directly here, AI will not replace a company like ours. It will amplify those who move with purpose and adapt with speed. That by itself is a very confident statement. And it comes from someone who has as much credibility on this question as anybody in the world. So Joseph, my question is to you now. You are building a company that is, betting on exactly that thesis, right? But Happiest Mind is not Infosys. You are competing in a very, very different weight class. So does that thesis hold equally for a company of your size, or does scale sort of change that equation?
So I totally agree with the with the statement that Nandan made, on saying that AI cannot really replace companies like us. And I'll take 2 or 3, things that have been said in the industry by various, I would say, leaders of the technology industry, and I have slightly different view. One of the leaders said that, who I won't name the person, but he was there at the AI conference that we had, and he said that all of Indian IT services would get replaced soon. And there's another leader. These are all big people, so I don't take the names. I have, at my level, I have a slightly different view. Another person said that all SaaS companies would get eaten up by AI, right? And this was one of the, I think, couple of actually founders of major AI companies. And that's also, it's they have to believe in that, right? But it's a self-serving statement in my view, right? But if you really look at it, Antara, and you look at any company that's adopting AI, and we also had statements around Anthropic starting their services business. OpenAI is doing something similar, and that was portrayed as a threat. And each time there's quite a lot of attention that goes to it. But what makes Indian IT services companies successful is their ability to bring system integration, right? Knowledge of overall software lifecycle, from a services perspective, and more importantly, domain and management expertise to the table, bringing all of this together. And if you really look at any SaaS company, you can't today saying, I'm going to replace a Salesforce. It's not going to be easy because there's so much of data, there's so much of workflows, business logic that any company would have embedded into the Salesforce. Similarly for other SaaS. But there are some SaaS platforms or products or subscriptions that can be replaced, right, by adding some functionality AI. But even if you're doing that, there has to be some domain understanding that's brought to the table. There has to be a UX UI interface that has to be built. You have to put guardrails. You have to build security into it. So you just can't take a Claude or a Chat GPT and say, okay, go and build a legal software or something for me. Right? It needs a spec, as Sridhar was pointing out, and then it needs some oversight. It needs some management. It needs some testing, security, all of that built in deployment. And therefore, again, I believe all of these are capabilities that the Indian IT industry brings to the table. Now, coming to scale, there's so much of productivity enhancement that you're getting from using, start off with Copilot, then Claude. Then you also have the need to be much more agile and faster, right? And if you look at mid-sized companies, in my view at least, we don't have these large, management AMS kind of contracts, support contracts, right? We don't have the need to sustain these larger streams of revenue. And I think it gives us an opportunity. I think, in fact, mid-sized companies are better placed to navigate the AI wave because we can disrupt. We have less, that will get impacted, and we are more agile, more responsive, and proactive. And therefore, I believe that in this case, at least, scale is going to be an advantage. And I also see companies breaking up, some of these large monolithic contracts, engagements that they had into smaller engagements, and they need that expertise and that specific knowledge that people will bring in. They need more of experts and people who've been there and done that, and that's something that we can offer. So while at an industry level, I agree, I also feel that mid-sized companies and companies that are a little smaller in size will be better placed.
Understood. Since again we are on the topic, Sridhar, my next question is to you. Nilkane's argument sort of rests on what he calls the AI deployment gap, right? That enterprises are not short on AI tools, rather they are short on the ability to, deploy them inside their existing infrastructure. That is essentially the business Happiest Minds GBS is built to serve. But here's my question: how long does that deployment gap stay open? At some point, enterprises build the capability in-house, or the tools get simpler, or someone automates the deployment itself. So what is your runway?
So sure. So the way we interpret is the AI infrastructure includes the models, the cloud, hyperscalers, and everything, right? And for you to have a business solution, right, there are multiple layers that need to be developed on the top of it, right? In the sense that, let's say, supply chain optimization I want to do. So I want to build a set of agents that will work and optimize the supply chain activity. So that's my workflow. Now, to build a business solution like this, I cannot say I have ChatGPT or Claude, which is part of the basic infrastructure, right? So from there, I require many additional layers. Some of them can be generic. Some third parties started providing it. In some cases, hyperscalers are providing that. Startups are providing it. In some cases, the workflows and all that you're going to build, right, with the tooling is very, very specific and custom to the industry segment and to that specific customer, right? So the way we look at it is from the AI infrastructure, for you to go to the level of the business application, there's a lot more that needs to be done, right? Yeah. And if they're extremely generic kind of solutions, that's a different story, right? But that is not true at all. If that is the case, so much custom application development wouldn't have happened historically also, right, Antara? In the sense that if 20 or 30 or 50 standard products or solutions comes, that's it. All IT needs are taken care of, which is not true at all. So that way, what we consider is AI infrastructure is getting better. The tools and few components are coming into the picture. It is our responsibilities to put the whole thing together to create the business solution that is centric around AI and provides the outcomes. That gap will continue to be always there.
Understood. Thank you for so much clarity.
And just to add, Antara, if you really look at Happiest Minds, if you look at the various elements that Nandan talked about, whether it's on security or the ability to ensure that you have the right architecture, that you do enough amount of testing and other aspects. Those are all services and offerings that Happiest Minds has and is quite strong in. So I feel even in that argument, it positions us better if that is one of the gaps that we will see going forward.
All right. I apologize for that minor hiccup there, but continuing on that conversation, here's that shift that I think defines where we are right now. For the last 2 years, the conversation was about models, GPT-4, Claude, Gemini, who has the best foundation model, who can access it, who can build on top of it. That conversation, while it's there, the narrative is sort of shifting because every enterprise has access to powerful AI models. The question is no longer access, right? The question is what happens next? So Sridhar, my question is to you. Is deployment now the most valuable layer of the AI stack? Would you say that? And also, are enterprises genuinely struggling more with implementation rather than with access to the technology itself? Sridhar.
Sure. When it comes to the models at this point, Antara, more or less all the models fall within 5 to 10% of the capabilities, right? Yeah. The bigger breakthroughs are extremely incremental at this point in time. Right. So it is more in terms of the token usage or making the model small and keeping them equally powerful as opposed to in the early days. Right. I keep 175 million parameters to billion parameters. Now what? We'll go to trillion parameters. No. That is not going to truly help. Right. So that way the models are within 5 to 10%. Now, the second thing is for reasonable number of applications, the choice of the models is very similar-ish. Of course, there could be certain kind of application you want 95% or 85%, whatever is the best model you would like to pick. So we have the ability to mix and match the models at this point in time. There are certain open source models also if there are certain concerns. So the software abstraction layers exist, and even the cloud providers, hyperscalers, they provide support for multiple models so that we can switch and mix and match. So that way, as I said, the models are there, which is more like a reasoning engine or text generation engine. Now, as I said earlier, right, if you take each business use case, apart from me chatting with it, right, any enterprise business use case, that is where the complexities will start coming into picture. Even if I think about a generic, okay, I'll go with the agentic model. Is there agentic platform? Is there? Now, what is the set of agents and how are they going to collaborate towards achieving my business use case? Then other elements like what Joseph said, right? Now, fine, I'll be having 1,000 agents as part of my enterprise. What happens to the security of this? Can I just, with a click of a button, can I change the guardrails and the security model of all the agents? What happens to the observability? Can I have a look at how all my 1,000 agents functioning at this point in time, or is it agent turning into rogue? Because for enterprises, one is the functional deployment. I touched on the complexity of that itself. And beyond that, it is not just the functionally valid solutions they deploy. Security is extremely critical for them. Now, what happens to the database in some case, or bringing down the e-commerce website? This is for some of the giants, right? So all these elements are equally important. And once the models came 3 years back, now everybody is looking at what the enterprises needs beyond models. right? That is a tooling, and those things are happening at this point in time, and you cannot just build them. Also, sometimes you need open source protocols. Like I can take a small example of agents, how they communicate. We need an open source protocol because some agents are built by one company, another set of agents infrastructure is provided by another company, both are different LLMs. Without that, we'll have a vendor lock-in. All these questions are part of what you're talking about, right? All those are the challenges for the enterprises, and that's where as Happiest Minds or as GBS unit, right, we help our customers on what is the safest way to address them to create the roadmap. And that is where the biggest amount of work is. The choice of the model is the easiest thing. I go with AWS, I go with Azure, or I go with Google, more or less between these. Yeah, it approximately fits. Then the real fun starts.
Understood. My next question is to Joseph. And Joseph, if you can hear me. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Happiest Minds' entire positioning as a digital engineering company is essentially a bet on the deployment layer, but being where the value, it's sort of is captured. Was that a deliberate strategic call, or did that market move to you?
So when we started Happiest Minds, we knew that that the whole model on which the IT industry was running on, where you had things like SAP, Oracle, and other applications that you needed to implement, and you'd go and do a big study phase and come out with, that would take 6 months or 9 months, and then you come up with a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year roadmap. And what we realized is that with digital, and it's getting accelerated in the case of AI, as Sridhar was also talking. But we realized that you needed to be much faster, and you need to be very agile. And that's why, when we started that company, we said born digital, born agile, because we just felt that you needed to be very agile in terms of how you understood the customer requirements, how you translated that into a quick and dirty POC, then get into a MVP, deploy it immediately, and get some customer feedback. Use that customer feedback to actually build the first stable version and go through the proper software lifecycle, whether it's on the testing front or whether it's on the DevOps and security and other things. And one of the things that I feel quite proud about is that we were one of the earlier companies to start the whole DevOps practice. So when you talk about deployment, you really, a part of it comes down to how quickly can you, and with enough guardrails and security, how quickly can you deploy whatever application or software that you developed. And now DevOps is a very commonly used term. But in 2013, there were very few companies that had a well-built DevOps practice. And I must say that both in the engineering and on the infrastructure space, we built pretty deep capabilities. So I would say it was actually a deliberate choice that we made. And we thought the market would move in that direction, and it did.
Okay.
But as you and Sridhar have been talking, if you look at it from an AI perspective,
yes,
I think the deployment it's a little different, but it's at the same time a very important element. And I believe that our DNA and the early, I would say, expertise and capabilities that we built is continuing to help us out here.
Understood. Staying on the same topic, and Sridhar, this is a question for you. And here's what I want to understand from someone who's doing this every single day, right? When an enterprise AI deployment, say, fails or stalls, what is actually going wrong? Would you say it's technology? Would you say it's organization? Or is it data? Or is it leadership? Is it culture? What is the real bottleneck?
Everything, right? So that's the interesting part and a complex part. We did have very localized technological shifts that happened so far. See, even though AI, 3 years back, or with machine learning itself, AI was there in enterprises. horizon, right? Be it DevOps or be it IoT, be it any technology you take, or blockchain, right? They're all highly localized technologies in the sense that within the organization, within the enterprise, if I have 50 applications and 1,000 developers or 1,000 engineering as part of my IT, 25 people will be worrying about it. The remaining 975 people will be completely insulated from that, right? Hence, to deploy, even to incorporate such technologies also, there is a little bit of other elements will come into picture, but highly manageable by the CIO as well as the leadership team, right? Now, of course, machine learning has been there for a really long time, as Joseph alluded earlier. Now, this new wave of AI, now the problem is all my 30 applications can have AI features now, as some agentic workflows or some elements will be there. If not, all these 1,000 people as part of my IT organization can use the productivity tools. Apart from that, new applications also I can think about. That means my product managers or business analysts have to worry about it. So basically, we are talking about more of a fundamental shift in the way the organization thinks and works, right? To bring a change like that with competitive pressure, right? Either the board in the context of an IT organization, if you're a product company, other products are already adding, releasing faster. Whether do it or not doesn't matter, at least as a pressure you are having. With such a tremendous amount of pressure, forget about even IT services companies, right? Even an IT organization also, how do I upskill my 1,000 people, right? And they themselves have the nervousness, the cultural problems. Some people will think that I can write better code. All kinds of things exist, right? So that is where I think the vision of the leadership and a practical way to implement and slowly bring the change with the help of the tools, processes, and the culture, all are required.
Understood. Thank you for that.
I'll just add a little bit here,
Yes, please,
Antara.
yes,
If you when you say fail, we also have to look at what fail is, because it means different in different contexts. Because I have a common saying, and Sheila has heard it several times, so you'll be sick of it. But in my view, a failure or dissatisfaction is your expectation minus reality or what happens actually, right? And therefore, if you look at it from a revenue standpoint, right? And I'm going to take 2-3 separate sub segments and try to bring a little context to the term failure, right? If you look at from a revenue standpoint, some of the companies have gone in and made investments. They've assumed that if I add this feature, either customers will pay for it or it will lead to uplift in revenues through conversions or whatever it is, right? And especially on expecting customers to pay, what we've been seeing is that the actual implementation has worked as per whatever was intended, but you're not able to get additional revenue for it. And then you start questioning the ROI. Is that a failure? I don't think it's a failure. I think it either is there's no market for it or it will take time, right? Sometimes customers have to get used to it and then they'll be willing to pay. So that's one element. The second part of it is, if you look at it from a productivity standpoint, there could be expectations built in that if once I use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is, right, I will get 2 times, 3 times productivity. And some of these take time to actually play out, because end of the day, this is not a replacement. It's an augmentation or a help that all of us take from these AI tools, and it takes time for people to get used to it, to learn how to use it. There's a learning curve involved, and at times technology may not also be as conducive or as easy to use. So it will take time to get to where people expect it to be. And the third is, if you look at it, in terms of your internal functions again, if you're trying to automate, replace, or whatever, these are again human beings internally, right? And similar to the software lifecycle, if you're, let's say, a legal person or a finance and accounting person, you're used to doing things in a certain way, and therefore you may at first just use it to query and find some data. So there's also, and Sridhar kind of alluded to it, there's also a cultural change element to it, and there's a learning element, and you can't train people on this. It's a learning that people have to learn, and you have to kind of organize, have to figure it out. So I want to put the failure also in context, actually, to add to what Sridhar had mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you for that very, very fresh perspective, I would say. Shifting focus now, something really interesting is happening in the edges of the industry, right? New job titles are appearing that did not exist, say, 3 years ago. I'm talking about forward deployed engineers or AI operators, AI transformation consultants, agent builders. These job titles, these are not just rebranded versions of the old roles. They sort of represent something structurally different, right, about how technology gets delivered and embedded into organizations. Joseph, this question is for you. How does Happiest Minds, think about these emerging roles? Are you actively hiring for them? Are you building them internally, or are they still more aspiration than reality on the ground for you?
So you know what I'll do, Antara? I'll let Sridhar take the first stab at it, and then I'll augment, because
absolutely.
a little bit
Have
more. He's a guy who's
through this.
on the ground. So,
No, please.
See, Antara,
Yes.
sure, I'll take a stab at it.
Yeah.
Antara and Joseph can add more to that. Your observation is right that anytime such technological shifts are happening, we tend to look at the new roles, right? Like in the past, like a DevOps engineers. Joseph did talk about that. So industry always looks at how can I actually get practically more value from a single role. What I meant by that is we had earlier a full stack engineer kind of a concept. Earlier, back-end engineers are different from the front-end engineers. Now, the competency and capability with a certain programming language, somebody is JavaScript programmer. So typically what you think is a front-end developer. If I say is a J2E developer, you generally tend to think that is a business logic or a back-end. Kind of, right? So, or if somebody says the Python developer, immediately you may think that might be data sciences and statistics kind of space, right? However, now we have the tools and the technologies where the programming language capability is no longer required to that level, right? So how can I have a role where somebody has a full understanding about all the technology layers and interconnections, right? These typically are 15, 20 years experienced people in the organizations historically, who has complete understanding so that they can instruct, this is a kind of messaging bus I would like to use, or can talk to the customer or the stakeholders, right? Now, when you give these tools to such people, they can actually even know about testing. They'll ask these 15, 20 years experienced people. They can generate the test cases and test scripts, because now they no longer need to know Selenium, because that capability is completely voided with Anthropic generating the code or ChatGPT generating code. Hence, the excitement around the FDE role, right? Somebody who has a complete understanding and can give very clear architectural instructions, right? Now, of course, naturally, in any organization, people who are senior architects and 15, 20 years experience, yes, with a little bit training, they moved into FDE. Now, the biggest challenge that we are looking at is how do we actually get the younger people or the entry-level people or the mid-level people into this full understanding so that they can actually generate all facets of the software development, including the DevOps, testing, and everything. Now, in our opinion, eventually, if that is the end state and end goal, because the programming language understanding is no longer relevant, right? It has to be eventually the combination of the universities as well as IT services industry. That means the people who are in the college, rather than focusing on certain areas or certain programming language, they need to focus more on the entire enterprise applications as part of their learning. That being said, within our organization, right, we are identifying the people who have the ability, even somebody is a full stack engineer or front-end engineer in the mid-level also, so that they can actually now expand and get the understanding about the remaining aspects. Maybe the person doesn't know much about the automated testing, knows every other aspect. So case by case basis, we are identifying what are the gaps in their understanding, because now the tools can support them, right? And give them in the training and achieve certain percentage of our organization into the FDE model, so that we have such people who can turn into the AI champions in the projects, right? And drive the project goals forward. And now, if last point I want to add is, if any organization eventually, whether they have 100,000 people or 10,000 people or 1,000 people, right? If any IT services company want to go to the true one person can do everything, the Superman or Superwoman kind of, right? With the help of these tools, that requires certain understanding, and that has to probably start from the university stage itself.
Understood, Sridhar. Joseph, you want to add on to it?
I just want to add a little bit out here, Antara. So if you see, I think in the past, Shida kind of alluded to it. I think we, as a industry, and I would again call out Happiest Minds, because we're a little early on some of these things. We've been able to create some of these new roles as and when there were changes both from a technology and market and customer expectation. So if you just look at earlier you had test engineers, and then we had automation engineers, because you take the test cases, automate them, and you didn't have to test each and every case manually, right? So that was, I would say one thing. And then we moved on to software, on the software side, as Sridhar mentioned, you moved on, you had full stack engineers emerging sometime in 2015. And, in 2018 or so, we actually had customers who wanted something similar to, I would say, what FD is, right? They wanted the engineers to do the design, not architecture, right? And I don't think your FDs will do architecture either. You'll still need that as a separate role.
Okay.
But they at least want them to do the low-level design, coding, do the testing using automated suites, and actually deploy it as well to the cloud, right? The FD is a little different because it's a little closer. You have much more business context in my mind. That's how I interpret it. But what I want to bring out is that the Indian IT industry has been evolving, adopting some of, creating new roles in response to the market. And some of our customers, we've gone or done, I would say 60-70% of what current FD is in the AI context.
Okay. Understood. Sridhar, my next question is to you. Would you say that, the next generation of Indian IT talent looks fundamentally different from, say, the software engineers of the last decade? And if yes, what does that transition, actually look like in practice for a company of, say, 6,500 people?
So the snapshot of the talent invariably is going to look different, Antara, right? In the sense that there are different models people are thinking about, right? Like so far the software development is like a typical triangle kind of thing, right? You have more like less people on the architecture, less people on the business analyst, etc., less people designing, and a lot more people doing the coding, etc. And invariably the model is not going to be a triangle, it is going to become a more of inverted triangle. That means a lot more time will be spent on architecture, design, and speccing, because the code generation, you have the tools to help, right? And the way people came out as a talent, as I mentioned earlier, their ability to know a programming language no longer is relevant, right? So their ability to understand a lot more about the overall software systems, or even as Joseph alluded to, the business understanding becomes much more important, contextual understanding of specific verticals, etc., as opposed to I know Python and I know certain data sciences frameworks there, right? So that kind of the heavy programming kind of capabilities as part of the talent will start losing the value with time. And it is very quickly eroding. So invariably it will be triangle, but an inverted triangle as talent.
Okay, understood. Thank you for that. Thank you for that articulate answer. Every technology company says that their customers want AI, but what does that actually mean when a customer picks up the phone and calls? Are they asking for co-pilots? Are they asking for agents, workflow automation, AI narrative application? Or would you say they're still figuring out what they want? So, Sridhar, what is Happiest Minds actually hearing directly from enterprises today? Not what they say when they want in a conference presentation, but what they are actually buying and what they are struggling to say articulate. Sridhar.
Sure. So one thing, go ahead, Joseph.
You want to take that? Let me attempt that first.
Yes, please.
Antara, I've been meeting a lot of, the last 6 months.
Okay.
I've done as much travel as what I probably did whole of last year, actually.
Wow.
And one of the reasons is just to, understand and hear what customers are going through and what they're wanting. And I'll just give a quick thing. And I think the whole AI adoption, and I'll come to what customers are actually asking today, right? But when you go back 3 years, around the time when ChatGPT got released, the ask and response from customers and how the IT industry has responded has been in multiple phases, right? The first phase was where customers were uncertain, and therefore a lot of discussions and conversations going on. And I think the fact that we built or started generative AI business unit and got some of our best people, got them working on some use cases, proactively gave us a little bit more of a insight into what are the different possibilities. And these are early days. Some of the use cases that we built then, it looks, when we look back on it and we say, hey, does that even make sense today? But obviously, 3 years back, it seemed like, a cutting edge. If today you looked at mobile apps, you'll say obviously it's a given, but in 2010, 2011, it was a very new concept, right?
Yeah.
So that was the first phase where you had conversations, you had to talk about use cases, and then you got into doing POCs, very quick ones, show them what is possible, what's not possible. And some of them started venturing into slightly larger implementations. And one of our issues was they're all like 50K, 100K kind of projects.
Yeah.
And we were wondering, how do we really make this into large engagements? But we also remember in the early days of digital and early days of IoT, right, where we were one of the earlier companies. These projects tended to be smaller, and then they became multi-million-dollar projects. So that's what gave us confidence that there is, there's going to be money at the end of the table. But I think what started changing in around that time, around a year and a half back, is customers started looking at the SDLC and, can we start adopting Copilot over there? This was being pushed by Microsoft and others saying that, hey, we're getting X% productivity enhancement, but it wasn't as much of a push, right? But sometime middle of last year is when we started companies looking at, I want more adoption, I want people to use Copilot, but they were still not clear about how to measure this. And they were coming back to us and asking, tell us, are you being affected, right? And so we had to go back, scramble and see, what are the different metrics that we can pull together to show adoption and effectiveness. And then what disintermediated all of this? Because I think last year, the mood shifted from how do I use AI in my operations and in my applications and customer interactions, to how do I optimize my SDLC, right?
Yeah.
And then it got, once Cloud Code got released, a lot of the focus has shifted to using an agentic AI approach in your SDLC. But what we're seeing in the last few months now, while that is going on in parallel, I think customers are going back to looking at how can you automate some of your processes, internal processes or processes that interact with vendors and partners. And increasingly, how do you look at using agents to interact with your customers and either generate revenues or impact your customer experience, and therefore, leading to uplift in revenues either through retention or through higher customer satisfaction or through capturing more data or getting a better understanding of the customer. That's the kind of evolution that we've seen. And again, I want to put two more, I would say, pivots to this. One is on a geo basis. At least our experience, what we are seeing, Antara, is that customers in the US geo seem to be, I would say, ahead, if you can use that term. Okay. And I would say what would probably make more sense, they're more decisive and aggressive in using AI, whether it's for automating some of the processes, especially in the SDLC, and to use it on the front line, in the kind of services that they offered. Europe is being a little cautious. India is a mixed bag. Middle East, again, what the few customers that we have, they're being studied about it. And Australia and Singapore, I'd say, is similar. From an industry perspective, BFSI, your regulated industries, they're being a little bit more careful how they apply it, right? They want to make sure that it's all local, it's locked down, data is taken care of, their, that customer data, and then, some of their internal business logic and things like that. So they're a little bit more careful as opposed to, let's say, customers in the retail or CPG space, or maybe in the manufacturing industrial space. They tend to be a little bit more careful how they adopt AI.
Okay, understood.
Do you want to add anything, Sridhar? I'm sure you'll have a couple of different angles to this.
Sridhar.
I'll just add a couple of points, Antara. Now, the closest technology, in my experience, to the AI is actually mobile. Where I want to draw the parallel is, all of us actually use the mobile applications, right? When iPhone came, immediately the expectation, we don't want to use this complex, this browser-based, all these buttons kind of, I want the simplicity, right? The demand actually happened from both end customers as well as enterprise users that I want such a sleek application to my website. I don't like it. It is so very similarly in the AI also, all of us touched and felt AI.
Yes.
Right? Within your own enterprise or as an end customer, you expect some AI to be there. Why am I going through all these when I want to buy a product? Why can't I just take a picture of it and either Amazon or Flipkart automatically not doing it, right? Because I can upload a tile to ChatGPT and it tells me where it is, right? So that way there is a tremendous amount of expectations. So that's how the mobile explosion happened. And that is a pressure that is also significantly happening on the enterprises on introducing AI. So I just want to add that. And last point is customers are not monolithic again. I don't want to get into that because they stay in different maturities and we appropriately handle. But a long answer just provided.
Understood.
No, just adding to that, Antara.
Yes, please.
I give you a personal experience. Yesterday I was on a website and popped a chatbot window. And I asked some question. And obviously it's a little rules based and it had a thing. And it said, is your request in one of these? And I'm like, no, if I went to ChatGPT and if I typed in saying that I'm trying to do this, can you give me options or whatever? You get it. And I so frustrated. Then I just stepped back and said, 2 years back, I would have been happy with this. But now look at me, how frustrated I've been with this chatbot. So Sridhar talked about mobile application. It sort of brought that, experience last night that I had to my mind.
I mean, that's how it's all evolving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joseph, my next question is to you. You have, I believe, 300 plus active customers, including 90 plus billion-dollar corporations. That by itself is a significant data set on enterprise AI adoption. What is the most, I would say, common gap that you see between what an enterprise thinks it needs and what it actually needs?
So, see, the difference comes at multiple levels, right? The first level is at the level of the board or a P owner and and what the executive team is. Because the board and the P owners, P owners maybe a little more nowadays. They're quite knowledgeable and abreast. But if you look at the board, they're talking to people. They're sometimes even the CEOs, right? And I don't mean all CEOs. Most of the CEOs of the customers we work with, they are quite good. So I think there's expectation mismatch on what the technology can do and what it can deliver. And the minute you push that onto the team, then the team starts looking or trying to actually come up with use cases or with implementations just to show that, hey, we are leveraging AI without actually thinking through, do we really need this? How do we need to implement this? And how do we get value out of it, right? But I think that's getting better now. And I believe that going forward, the implementation and what companies will adopt in terms of AI will be much better. Now, on the SDLC side, again, I think that there are some companies or customers, again, based on whatever you see, maybe your best engineer or best, I won't even say best engineer, best technical person. The person would be like 20, 25 years experienced and really good. For a person like that, if you gave a tool like Claude, they're obviously will be able to work wonders or do much better than the others. But to take that as your benchmark and say that, hey, this guy is delivering 5 times the productivity as he was able to deliver earlier, or as opposed to maybe a mid-level or a junior engineer. Again, that I think is something that customers need to factor in, because the minute you start looking at it that way, then you're looking at, hey, is this not working out at all for us? People are not stepping up. They're not able to deliver what is required. So I think being a little more realistic and understanding the context and is what I think is going to be important, Antara.
Okay. All right, Joseph. Thank you.
I would like to add little bit to that, Antara, because not every organization is ready for AI, right? What I meant by that is they might not be having the necessary digital infrastructure, they have the data cleansed, they have any data consolidated in a proper way. You just can, it is a garbage in, garbage out. Because the AI is operating on the top of all these things. With some of our customers, one customer education institution in Asia, for us to actually create a collection of 12 AI use cases, we had to do 3x to 4x work to create the digital infrastructure first. So that is where which use cases I can build on the top of existing digital and data infrastructure so that those use cases can work, as opposed to be, oh, this use case sounds cool, let me do it. That is where the failure or the gaps tend to be there. And we're helping our customers on pulling the layers on the top and then adding AI on the top.
Certainly, Sridhar. Thank you for that. Let me ask this question directly, because I would say it is one that every investor, every analyst, every engineer watching this wants answered. And Joseph, this is a question for you. Many investors and industry observers now argue that AI may become the next major growth engine for Indian IT. Do you agree with that statement? And what gives you the confidence that AI demand will actually translate into sustained business growth and not just a pipeline that converts slowly?
Sure. So, if you just look at the overall AI landscape, as I said, we've gone through multiple phases, Antara, and I think we're coming to a point where, while we are a little early in this transition, I think we're getting more clarity on how this could play out. Technology is still evolving fast, but as Sridhar pointed out, the marginal improvements you're getting on LLMs has reduced now, right? Because all the big changes have already been done. So we have a little bit more of, I would say, visibility, to the extent that you can say visibility of what are the opportunities. And if you I'll again take it on three fronts, right? We touched on some of these topics in our conversation so far.
Yeah.
I think customers are moving from MVP or doing POCs into actual implementations and making sure they incorporate AI features into their platforms, applications, and into their customer-facing interactions, whether it's website, mobile, or any other social media, any other media, right? So that gives a lot of opportunity. And if you drill down this, that one is adding the AI part. Sridhar talked about the whole data piece. There's a huge opportunity out there because the minute we start talking to customers, then you start realizing that they have data ingestion problems, they have data silo problems, they have data governance, and they have data quality issues. So that leads to quite a bit of opportunities at the data layer. And our data and analytics COE is very well positioned to take advantage of this. And then once you get down, you also have a lot of security related I would say concerns, and it's on an ongoing basis, right? And I believe that this will become more and more of an issue and an opportunity on the security, data privacy, and other layers. So if you look at the whole custom interaction and revenue bearing layer, there's a lot of opportunity. Now, if you come into the internal operations and functions, whether it's cash to order and other things, there are opportunities around taking some of the bespoke applications that have already been built, or taking some of the software and SaaS platforms that they have, and to see if you can leverage AI and give a native AI feel to it. Then there's also the whole automation piece where you can use Gen AI to automate entire business workflows, whether it's at a functional layer, horizontal functional layer, or some of the vertical business workflows that they have, which will be like mortgage, or if you take pharma as discovery of molecules, you can help over there, right? So there are a lot of opportunities. And then I come to SDLC, where there's a little bit of a challenge to Indian IT services industry, because the first two are clear opportunities for the Indian IT industry. Unless you have a lot of BPO kind of work you're doing, then the second bucket, there would be some challenges, because your automation out there will lead to redundancy or lower headcount being required. But that, I think, is a smaller part of the Indian IT industry. Then you go to the third, the SDLC. And I think here that there is, as we increasingly adopt an agentic AI approach for, both brownfield, greenfield, and legacy applications, it will reduce the number of people required, but there are a lot of opportunities that will come up. So many companies have been sitting on tech debt for so long, just because they didn't have the bandwidth, or they were not able to provide the kind of attention that it's required, or they didn't have documentation, etc. Right? Then you have a lot of applications that are still, running on, let's say, mainframe or other things that are legacy, or that have so much of business logic embedded in them, and no documentation. People who have written those software have retired long past. So there's a huge risk in modernizing them. These are some of them are monolithic applications where you put a wrapper and an API to just use it, but you're living with some of the inadequacies. Now, all of this is fair game now, because if you don't have documentation, you have all of these tools, Cloud Code and others, that will help you interpret and get 90-95% documentation, which you can then fill up. It will also help you modernize these applications, address tech debt, or move from one version to another version with much less effort and much less risk. So all of this will become, opportunities. And then, as I said over here, as you're doing this modernization and other things, there will be security, there'll be some infrastructure needs. So there's a fair bit of opportunities, even on the SDLC front, that will come out. And when you put all of this together, I think this will give a bit of impetus to the Indian IT industry. I was just reading, an article by Zino, which talked about AI as a $1 trillion opportunity for the Indian IT industry over the next, 5 years or so, which is a lot of money actually, right? Which can add like 10 to 15% easily to the
Certainly.
Indian IT industry.
Certainly.
I'll add only one point, Antara,
Yes,
right?
please.
Of course, we talked a lot on this, right? Only point I want to add is, of course, we're all saying that the pie is going to become bigger,
Yeah.
right? However, this is not like a high tide that is going to rise all the boats. There'll be winners, there'll be losers,
Correct.
right? That is very, very clear also, right? And you yourself alluded towards agility in earlier part of your conversation. The organizations need to be prepared. There surely will be some winners, some losers, but the pie will get bigger.
Certainly. Walking with it instead of behind it. I mean, I think that's the need of the hour. And gentlemen, in the interest of time, we'll have to wrap this segment. But I believe what today's conversation tells me is this, that Indian IT it's not finished. It is in the middle of its most, I would say, significant reinvention, since the service model was invented. The companies that get it right will look genuinely different from, what we know today. And the ones that don't will look like the cautionary tales. I believe Happiest Minds has made its bet, and the platform is launched, the partnerships are in place, the pipeline is building, and now comes the harder part, delivery. So thank you, gentlemen. This has been an enthralling conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you here on Point Break. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.